Good evening. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting tonight from Los Angeles. The latest numbers on the nation's industrial production and new housing starts today gave President Reagan something to crow about. But when it comes to a final deal on a jobs bill, Democrats in Congress are not about to let the president peck them aside and crow about that, too, at his news conference later tonight. Congressional correspondent Phil Jones has more on the figures, both political and economic.
Just as the Federal Reserve Chairman was sending signals across Capitol Hill that recovery would continue to be weak, conflicting new and dramatic signals were coming from elsewhere. Housing starts for January rose almost 36%, the highest rate of new starts in more than 3 years. And building permits were up about 16%, signaling the intention of builders to keep the housing boom going for the rest of the year. And the nation's factory production jumped 0.9%. A sharp improvement and a signal considered by many to be the best yet that the recession is ending. On Capitol Hill, members of a Senate banking committee, convinced that interest rates are unnecessarily high, that banks are taking advantage of Americans, were looking for good news from the Federal Reserve. But instead, they were told that the money market may get even tighter.
Money in its various definitions should grow less this year than last. After having gone through all the pain that we've gone through, and see the signs of progress that we see on inflation, we don't want to give that up.
If the message goes out of here today to the business community and to people across the country that the Fed, in essence, feels that we can get a recovery with interest rates at this level and not having to go lower, that will really jolt an awful lot of people.
Elsewhere on Capitol Hill, politicians, jittery over predictions of continued double-digit unemployment, were scurrying to craft an emergency jobs bill. Republicans with White House aides were attempting to keep Democrats from adding another billion onto a $4.3 billion package already embraced by the president.
You know, it's a give-and-take proposition here, and if there's some who want to get overly enthusiastic about add-ons, then the whole package is in jeopardy.
Democrats in Congress are miffed because they think the president has stolen the initiative on jobs. But as one Democratic leader put it today, politically it will be much easier to decide who gets the credit than it will be to assess the blame if nothing gets passed. Phil Jones, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
CBS News live coverage of President Reagan's news conference begins at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. The president's plans for a big boost in defense spending got a boost of sorts today from an unusual quarter. The Congressional Budget Office concluded today that high-level defense spending over the next few years is not likely to trigger high levels of inflation. But the CBO cautions a big defense budget does carry other risks, including a risk to the country's overall economic expansion if there is too much deficit spending on defense. President Reagan's nominee for director of the Arms Control Agency that negotiates with the Soviet Union did not receive an outright rejection today from the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, but rejection was the message the committee sent the White House. And as Bill McLaughlin reports, that was a political setback for the president and Senate conservatives.
The committee voted overwhelmingly to delay for at least a week a vote on the appointment of Kenneth Edelman, Mr. Reagan's hand-picked choice to run the Arms Control Agency. Committee members later said their action was a clear message to the president that they were serious about reducing nuclear arms, and Kenneth Edelman was not a serious choice to handle that job. Democrat Alan Cranston led the attack by reading statements attributed to Edelman in which he called arms control talks a sham that are played out for the benefit of the public and American allies. Edelman, said Cranston, would be a disastrous choice.
And it's positively devastating, it seems to me, to the people of this nation and of the entire world who yearn for peace, if these are in fact the views of the person to be charged with the awesome responsibility of overseeing all arms control and disarmament activities and negotiations on behalf of the U.S. government.
Cranston had an ally in Republican Senator Charles Mathias, who said the president faced a dilemma.
He's caught between the right wing and the right thing, and he's lost the initiative.
Committee Chairman Charles Percy said Edelman had some explaining to do about his attitude toward arms talks.
Are negotiations a sham? Are they to be just carried on? It strikes at the heart of the credibility of everything that the Vice President has accomplished and tried to accomplish in Europe.
Edelman had no comment today, but the White House did. Sources there said the president was sticking by his choice of Edelman and thought all the fuss was being created by Alan Cranston, who wants to be the Democratic Party's presidential nominee. But that explanation does not explain why Republicans like Mathias also want the president to change his mind. Bill McLaughlin, CBS News, the State Department.
Conservatives suffered another defeat today when the Senate confirmed Richard Burt as an Assistant Secretary of State. They had tried to block his approval, charging Burt had endangered national security when he wrote a newspaper article about a U.S. spy satellite system 4 years ago.
When you're just starting out, you don't have a lot of extra money for insurance. So Aetna has a whole life policy that starts you out for as little as term.
Aetna, I'm glad I met you.
Aetna has a policy that fights inflation, too. While prices have gone up, premiums have come down.
Aetna, I'm glad I met you.
And Aetna group plans give employees medical and life coverage at very low cost.
Aetna, I'm glad I met you.
Call your Aetna agent. We'd love to meet you.
Decades ago, new vineyards appeared in the hills and valleys of California. The finest European varietal wine grapes began to flourish on the vines. And a new wine was born. A wine whose flavor, quality, and consistency were praised by critics throughout the world. Today, that wine is America's most preferred white wine. The Chablis Blanc of Ernest and Julio Gallo. All the best.
In North Dakota, the saga of a radical right-wing tax rebel suspected of killing 2 U.S. Marshals still isn't over. Ned Potter reports that what started out as a tax war, then became a shooting war, is tonight a war of nerves, including a wife's plea to surrender peacefully.
At the county courthouse in Jamestown, North Dakota, police and FBI agents set up a command post, fanning out to look for Gordon Call.
It's going to be a very intensive investigation.
An official said they think Call may still be in the central part of the state, and Call's wife, Joan, made a plea for him to surrender.
Please, they won't hurt you. I've been treated real well here. Our son is in critical condition. 2 men are dead.
The empty farmhouse police stormed yesterday was shot through by tear gas canisters. Police reportedly found $150,000 worth of guns and ammunition inside. And this, plus Sunday's shootout, angered those close to Call, who said the government provoked him, trying to depict him as a violent fanatic instead of someone committed to a cause.
He's not dangerous. He's a very harmless man, but he's got his convictions.
Posse Comitatus, the anti-government group to which Call claimed to belong, has no headquarters and no membership rolls. Some who say they belong to it claim to have several thousand followers nationwide. A group, for example, came forward near Portland, Oregon.
They have declared war on us.
One of the marshals Call allegedly killed was buried this afternoon, and in their memory, flags around the state flew at half-mast. Ned Potter, CBS News, Jamestown, North Dakota.
So far, former CIA agent Edmund Wilson has heard 2 verdicts of guilty pronounced against him for his illegal arms deals with Libya. Today, in New York federal court, he was indicted yet again, this time on even more bizarre charges. And as Robert Shackney tells us, Wilson may be about to give prosecutors information they want in the worst way.
Edwin Wilson, twice convicted and facing new charges of plotting murder, may be ready to start talking for the first time. CBS News has learned that his lawyers have opened plea bargain negotiations with federal prosecutors in Washington. Prosecutors want Wilson to provide evidence about Pentagon and CIA officials, mostly retired, who allegedly shared in illegal Mideast arms transactions. Another reason for Wilson to cooperate was the arrest today of his 22-year-old son, Eric. He was charged with carrying a $9,800 down payment for his father to arrange the murder of 2 federal prosecutors, 4 witnesses, and 2 former business associates. The indictment charges that from his prison cell, Wilson offered to pay $1.25 million for 8 murders. But the plot never had a chance. A supposed hitman turned out to be an undercover FBI agent. Wilson had been betrayed.
Mr. Wilson, who was incarcerated at the Metropolitan Corrections Center, approached another inmate looking for someone on the outside who could carry out some contract murders. That inmate brought that matter to our attention, and as a result, an undercover FBI agent was introduced to Wilson, and the evidence was then gathered of Wilson's plan to murder the various people involved.
Whatever the outcome of the plea negotiations, Wilson's future is clearly very bleak. Already facing a potential of 40 years in prison because of his 2 previous convictions, he could face a life term on the new charges. and that is powerful pressure on Edwin Wilson to start cooperating with prosecutors and talk about his alleged Confederates in the Pentagon and CIA. Robert Shackney, CBS News, New York.
The Buick T-Types. T as in tight suspensions. T as in high technology. T as in touring and the grand tradition. T as in terrific. Riviera, Regal, Century, Skylark, Skyhawk. The Buick T-Types. Try one at your Buick dealer.
These days, people are holding on to copiers that have seen better days, or pumping hope into rebuilds to save money. But now for just $28.95, Canon gives you the one touch more. Starts instantly, makes 12 copies a minute on plain paper, reduces, enlarges, yet uses far less energy than other copiers its size. So why blow it? Get Canon's one touch more, NP125, for just $28.95. For information, call toll-free.
Turin, Italy was a city in mourning today for the 64 victims of last weekend's movie theater fire, Italy's worst fire since the war. More than 80,000 people crowded into the streets outside the Turin Cathedral. Inside, hundreds more attended funeral services for the 44 of the dead, including an American art student. Australia is under siege by fire. Brush fires racing across the tender, dry prairie and woodlands at unbelievable speed. At least 36 people have been killed, many after they were trapped in their cars. 60-mile-an-hour winds are stacking the odds against more than 7,000 firefighters. Thousands of people have been evacuated and hundreds of homes destroyed. But as one Australian firefighter put it, we've given up trying to save homes. All we can do is try to save people. In another place where people are trying to save people, little people, there is a special requirement in one San Diego hospital unit. Barry Peterson tells us it enables those who have given the gift of life to keep on giving it.
It's free. Pat McClendon is learning how to save a life. Learning because the life she may have to save is her daughter's. Genevieve was born 2 months prematurely. She and dozens of other premature and sick babies are hospitalized at University Hospital's Infant Intensive Care Unit. A premature child is 8 to 10 times more likely to suffer from sudden infant death syndrome than a normal child. That's when a baby simply stops breathing. No one knows why. So the McClendons and the parents of all the infants hospitalized here face a unique requirement. Before the child is released, the parents must learn infant CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Quite simply, how to revive a baby who has stopped breathing.
You got it. Oh, wow.
Being able to know what to do rather than helplessly watching the baby or doing something ineffective or something that might even harm the baby. Yes, I think it's well worthwhile.
We started doing it when we had babies that we thought went home and died unnecessarily, and so we wanted to give parents a tool to work with to be able to save their babies.
Jonathan Gorby is an easygoing 14-month-old child. He was premature. A month after he got home, Jonathan stopped breathing. His lips turned blue, his heartbeat began to fade. Jonathan was dying. Connie Gorby was home alone.
Oh, God, I was terrified. First of all, I laid him on the bed and I screamed. I shouldn't say that, but I was so upset that I screamed, and then I went, oh, you know, I have to do this or no one else can, you know. And then I did it, and I sure was glad when it worked. If I hadn't done what I did, he probably wouldn't be here.
In the last 2 years, parents who have taken the course have revived 7 babies. Officials here expect other hospitals will soon follow this lead. Will also require parents to learn infant CPR. 7 children alive today, said one nurse, is about all the argument you need that this program works. Barry Peterson, CBS News, San Diego.
Incidentally, doctors say premature babies may stop breathing because of incomplete development of their brains. Researchers at 2 Australian hospitals measured the speed with which messages are transmitted in the baby's brain stems and found they are processed more slowly in those who have difficulty breathing. As the babies grew older, breathing lapses decreased while the speed of those messages increased. The study appeared in the New England Journal of Medicine.
It's a drive to excel. It's a matter of pride. Roman meal, when you know what's good for you.
Natural, whole grain goodness for people who know what's good for them.
You're happy and fit and going for more.
Roman meal bread from the people who invented whole grain goodness.
The coalition government of Israeli Prime Minister Begin, weakened last week by the Beirut massacre report findings, was strong enough today to easily defeat 3 no-confidence votes in parliament. In Beirut, the Lebanese government barred Israeli troops from all of the capital's eastern sector except for one supply road, and it warned that Lebanese soldiers would shoot at any forces, including Israel's, that challenged Lebanon's authority. This followed a tense but non-violent confrontation between the two sides just one day after Lebanon regained control of the predominantly Christian eastern sector. Lebanon is not the only foreign country in which the Israeli military is involved. As Bob Simon reports tonight from Guatemala, Israel has helped that Central American country wage a war with no questions asked.
The army of Guatemala has fought a war against guerrillas and has won. It did so in less than a year. It did it with no military aid or advice from the United States. Its officers believe they won the war because they kept the Americans out.
We don't need any military aid from the U.S.
Don't you need American advice?
No, of course not. What will an American advisor know about our situation?
But Guatemala did need weapons. Washington wouldn't oblige. Israel would, and did, for cash. Everything the army required. Galil rifles, Uzis, machine guns, ammunition, flak jackets, helmets, troop transports. And they didn't send down congressmen, human rights activists, or priests. They taught the Guatemalans how to build an airbase. They set up their intelligence network, tried and tested on the West Bank and Gaza, designed simply to beat the guerrilla. Mao Zedong described the guerrilla as a fish swimming in a sea of peasants and villages. The Guatemalan answer, if you can't kill the fish, you can dry up the sea. Do it with fire, scorch the earth, burn villages where guerrillas found refuge, destroy crops, force peasants off the land into strategic hamlets, Vietnam style, where you control them. Create refugees, drive them into Mexico. Incur the wrath of Washington for your human rights violations. But if you're the president of Guatemala, the born-again Christian who won the war, you may ask, what could any foreigner know about human rights in a place like Guatemala?
¿Qué derecho tiene decir que no hay derechos cuando aquí no ganamos para comer?
What right does the world have to say that there are no human rights when there is no food to eat?
It all adds up to a very strange scene. When you see soldiers in Guatemala today, they're not killing Indians, they're cooking for them. They're bringing in police bands. Where are the guerrillas? The army will tell you these were the guerrillas, now being wooed by the same soldiers who burned and slaughtered, being won over with beans, barbecues, bands, and dentists. An army medical team visits a village where, only a short while ago, the military presided over a terror so deep that people wouldn't even talk about it in their homes at night. This from a former Peace Corps worker.
This government, what it seems to be doing is trying to make love, not war, on the population at this point.
You want to be loved? Join the team. That's all it takes. Join the civil patrols. Every village has one. Guard against insurgents. No matter that your weapons are primitive, no matter that you were a guerrilla 6 months ago, everything's forgiven. You're in the army now. Those who haven't joined the team, well, they've gone to Mexico. Those, that is, who survived. At least 30,000 refugees with tales of death, destruction, devastation. Tales you can see in their eyes. This woman was farming when the army passed by. Her husband was beheaded. She lost part of her hand. She can't remember much beyond that. My future is death, which is chasing me, says one man. The army is raiding the camps in Mexico, not bothered by niceties like international borders. But Rios Montt is unrepentant for the raids, the refugees, the atrocities.
Todo el mundo señala que hay un gobierno tiránico.
The entire world points at me and says that I lead a tyrannical government.
Y hay una tiranía.
And there is a tyranny.
Estamos conociendo nuestra miseria.
We're beginning to recognize and know our own misery because there are only exploiters and exploited.
Y nosotros siempre hemos sido unos explotados.
And we have always been the exploited.
This is the president's sermon. Don't worry about human rights in Guatemala. Worry about poverty. That's what breeds guerrillas. You want a Central American showcase? Help us out. Buy our coffee. Give us a good price. We'll do the rest. The Guatemalans have solved their guerrilla problem, for now anyway. They've been brutal and smart and successful. And since when have Americans argued with success? Bob Simon, CBS News, Huehuetenango, Guatemala.
Election rioting among religious groups in the Indian state of Assam is turning into a bloodbath. Militant Hindus trying to disrupt the elections are waging virtual war on Muslim immigrants from neighboring Bangladesh. At least 26 people were killed today and last night, and the overall toll in this part of India for the past 2 weeks is over 300.
It's kind of slippery.
I'll be careful. Besides, we're not alone.
Ah, yes.
We've got the blimp behind us.
The sisters may not know that Goodyear rolls up 9 million miles a year testing tires, but they sure like the traction they get.
So, with the blimp behind us, our car handles
just divinely.
Get the blimp behind you. Come up to Goodyear.
Oh, it's good to have friends in high places.
Bob, we've got rats! Thank goodness a neighbor told us about Decon Rat Killer, the clean way to kill dirty rats. Rat traps are scary and messy, and exterminators can mess up your budget. Decon bait is inexpensive, clean, and sure. Rats just eat themselves to death. No wonder Decon is the #1 rat killer in homes all over America. Decon is the clean way to kill dirty rats and mice.
Hello. I like this Remington microscreen rechargeable shaver so much, I bought the company. It shaves as close as a blade, or I'll give you your money back. The first microscreen is so thin it shaves incredibly close. The second even closer. And Remington's American-made. It costs less. Norelco's imported. It costs much more. The Remington microscreen rechargeable shaver shaves as close as a blade, or your money back.
And the Lady Remington rechargeable, the perfect gift. Shaves without a cord.
Now let's talk boondoggle. The word was coined in 1925 by a Rochester, New York scoutmaster to describe a braided leather lanyard. It took on a whole different meaning, however, during the New Deal period. Boondoggle came to mean any unnecessary and wasteful project. And as Tom Fenton reports from a small town in Scotland, that definition is apt on either side of the Atlantic.
To get there, you drive west from Glasgow along the River Clyde. Then it's a short ferry ride across the Firth of Clyde from Gourock to Dunoon. Through the wild hills and glens of Cowell, down Loch Ridden and the Kyles of Bute, across the peninsula to Portavadi.
And that brings you here, to this hole in the ground, the biggest hole in the ground in Europe, dug out of hard Scottish rock at a cost of $30 million in taxpayers' money. What makes this hole interesting is the fact that the government is about to spend more money to fill it up again.
The Portavadi project began 9 years ago in an effort to cash in on the North Sea oil boom. Haste was essential. No time for advanced planning or bids. Make up the details of the design as you go along. When completed, the Great Dry Dock was supposed to produce concrete offshore drilling platforms like this. Platforms that the oil industry, presumably, was waiting to buy. The design called for a structure 500 feet deep, which, when completed, would be floated out to sea. Unfortunately, no one noticed that the channel leading to the sea was only 400 feet deep. The design was modified in a desperate attempt to keep the project afloat, but the Portavati yard never received an order.
The government just went straight ahead on a cost-plus basis tender and allowed this thing to be built.
Weren't there feasibility studies? Didn't somebody look into the future to see if these darn things were actually wanted?
Governments, I suspect, often don't necessarily choose to listen to reasoned professional advice when it doesn't suit them.
A few other details were overlooked. The government built a $7 million village for the workers, but neglected to acquire the land. That, too, was a pity, because under Scottish law, whoever owns the land owns what's built on it. In this case, the owners were a private construction company which got the village for nothing and sold it for a huge profit to a company in the West Indies. It is now rotting away. And for the people of this remote Scottish peninsula, dreams of prosperity have vanished.
I had a small business here when it first started, which has now failed.
But it'd be better looking back on it. I mean, better leaving Portavati the way it was than disturb it. And all that money wasted for nothing.
So, what to do with the whole? Among the suggestions, a naval base, a marina, even a fish farm. But the sad fact is that a month from now, another $2 million will be spent to tear down the remaining structures and open up the dam. The hole will be filled and, the government hopes, forgotten. Tom Fenton, CBS News, Portavati, Scotland.
A late report from CBS News correspondent Bob Schieffer in Washington, who says that President Reagan is expected to disclose at his news conference later tonight that the U.S. Navy carrier Nimitz and several escort ships have been moved out of Lebanese waters to a position off the coast of Libya. This apparently, says correspondent Schieffer, has been done to show force in response to a request from Egyptian President Mubarak. Mubarak reportedly warned President Reagan last week that a buildup of Libyan troops and aircraft along the Libyan border with the Sudan posed a threat to the current Sudanese government. That's the CBS Evening News for this Wednesday. Dan Rather reporting this week from Los Angeles. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
Today, take your first step into a bright new world of investment opportunity and financial security. Let Prudential Bache introduce you to Total Financial Planning, a lifetime strategy to properly place your investment assets for maximum returns. Total Financial Planning, the only sensible course of action for the uncertain 80s, and we offer it to you. Call us now. Prudential Bache Securities. Bring us your future.
Bring us your future.
Coronet two-ply paper towels are surprising. They're soft, but they're very strong, even when they're wet. And if you think that's a surprise, they give you more towels on every roll than other national brands, 125 of them. So you get a lot, not pay a lot. Fact is, the more you use Coronet, the more you save. How much will you save? That's hard to say. How strong are they? That's easy to see.
Extra value is what you get when you buy Coronet.
I'm Diane Sawyer. Should a tax be withheld on your savings dividends? Hear Treasury Secretary Regan and Pat Collins with Dudley Moore tomorrow on the CBS Morning News.
This is CBS.
And in our news tonight, Third National's bank tower may now be a dead issue. But even so, Mayor Fulton says the rejection of the plan by the Metro Council last night may seriously hamper downtown development. We'll have that story and a lot more coming up right now on Eyewitness News.
From Television 5, this is Eyewitness News, weather, and sports.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Clark.